In this video, we're going to be taking the all-new GPD WIN 5 to the max. And I'll tell you what, with this thing set up correctly in dock mode, it's a full-fledged gaming PC capable of 1440p gaming over 60 FPS. And what I've got here is actually the lower-end GPD WIN 5 with the Ryzen MAX 385. It's not the 395 variant, and we've only got 32 gigs of RAM. I've been having an absolute blast with the GPD WIN 5, especially in dock mode here. And when it comes down to it, obviously, first and foremost, this is a handheld gaming PC meant to be carried around. But we've got an 80 watt-hour battery with this, and with something like that Ryzen MAX 385, to get a little more performance out of it, you will need to throw some more wattage at it. And in dock mode, we don't have to worry about battery life. We can plug directly into the wall and take this thing all the way up. So jumping in here with the WIN 5 in dock mode, as you can see, we've got the AMD Ryzen AI Max 385 version. So this is the lower end version, but it's still putting down way more performance than other iGPUs on the market. 8 cores, 16 threads. This one happens to have 32 gigs of system memory, but I've taken 16 and dedicated it to the iGPU. You can do it from the BIOS or from AMD software. So we've got 16 for system, 16 for VRAM. And when this thing's plugged in, it actually does up to 65 watts. And on battery, the stock TDP is 45 watts, but we can adjust that up or down either way. GPD recommends motion assistant. And from here, it's actually really easy to kind of adjust across the board. So we've got a custom 1, just 20 watts, custom 2, 45, custom 3, 60. We can set the AC limit. So the AC TDP is up to 65 here, and we can also set the DC limit. But to show you that we are hitting that 65 watt mark here, we'll run a stress test with CPU-Z, and right down here, this should jump up to 65, and this should be a sustained 65 watt TDP, allowing for higher clocks on the CPU and GPU as opposed to a 45 watt TDP. And to give you an idea of the performance difference here, I did run a few benchmarks at 45 watts and 65. First one we have is Geekbench 6. At a 45 watt TDP, this chip is scoring 2,720 right there on single core, 12,834. And moving down to the 65 watt run, you can see we did gain a bit on single, but where the real gains come in are on that multi-core score because we can feed all 8 cores more wattage. And as for iGPU performance here, this Radeon 8050S does pull quite a lot of wattage when it needs it. So adding a little more wattage here definitely helps out. OpenCL benchmark here at 45 watts, we were right there at 60,734. And at 65 watts, that score jumps up to over 80,000. So we've got a significant gain here with OpenCL performance. I also ran 3D Mark Steel Nomad. 45 watts, we're right there at 1,553. And our FPS was 15.54. At 65 watts, the score now jumps up to 1,883. And our FPS jumps up to 18.84. And finally, I've got 3D Mark Time Spy, 45 watts, total score here, 7,985. And at a 65 watt TDP, a little over 10,000. And you can see that the graphics score and the CPU have increased here, taking that wattage up to 65. These new Ryzen MAX chips are not made for low watt devices. And I mean, when it comes down to it, they do benefit from throwing a little more wattage at them up to a certain point. And in my experience, with the Ryzen MAX Plus 395, I've been able to take it up to around 135 watts and still get some gains there. Anything past that, not much of a difference. But yeah, we've got the Ryzen MAX 385, which is going to draw a bit less because we've only got 8 cores and 16 threads. But either way, you can see that adding a little more to it in dock mode is going to help out significantly. And really, the main reason you'd need any more wattage with this handheld is run games at 1440p. And of course, with this thing, we've only got a 1080p display built in. So going into dock mode and taking it up really does turn this into a full-fledged gaming PC. Spider-Man 2, 1440p, high, FSR set to balanced with no frame gen. Saw an average of 83 FPS, and this was pretty impressive because this is one that's a bit hit or miss on iGPUs, albeit, I mean, we've got a pretty powerful iGPU with the 8050S here. But overall, I've been seeing great performance with this game, and even at 45 watts, 1080p, this game is still fully playable. Forza Horizon 5, 1440p Ultra with no FSR, and I did turn VSync off, but it does look like it might be locking up to 120. Now I know for a fact that we can run this at 4K, around 72 FPS on average Ultra settings with this chipset here. I just did a 1440p run here just to see what we could do, and on average, we're at around 116 FPS. Another one I wanted to test here was Doom the Dark Ages, and with this I did take it down to medium settings, but we're still at 1440p with some FSR, and I was hoping for a little more out of it at medium, but I mean we're still over that 60 mark, and we're not using any kind of frame gen. If you want to almost double that frame rate, you can use FSR frame gen here. But I'll tell you, this really does feel like a dedicated RX 6600 non-XT. But with this, we can actually add more VRAM, so we're up to 16 gigs here, which does help out, especially with games like this. If you take a look at our VRAM usage, we're over 10 gigs right now. Marvel Rivals did pretty well here. We're at 1440p high with FSR set to quality, and taking it down to balance will get us a little more, but I wanted to be right on the edge there. And if you keep an eye on that FPS, even during battle here, it's not going to dip under 60. Looking pretty decent here for this one also. God of War Ragnarok 1440p, high settings with FSR set to balance, no frame gen, in the mid 70s with it during battle here, and this is a pretty intense little scene. Usually when it comes to iGPUs, we have to kind of drop this down or even use frame gen, but with this 8050S, I mean, it's just going to hold its own here for sure. And finally, Cyberpunk 2077, 1440p, high with FSR set to balanced. I mentioned at the beginning that I do consider this a 1440p iGPU if you don't mind using some scaling here. Now, if you wanted to go down to 1080, with all of the games that we saw here, you could go up to Ultra except for Doom the Dark Ages. Even at 1080, I had to drop that down to high settings. But yeah, it's up to you. I mean, if you pick something like this up and you want to go into dock mode with it, just note that you can definitely get much better performance and use this as an everyday gaming system. Another thing that's really impressive here with the GPD WIN 5 in dock mode is the cooling system. It's got a twin-turbofan system, 4 thick pure copper heat pipes, and in handheld mode at a 45-watt TDP, it's rather quiet for what we've got here. I mean, it's a pretty beefy chip that they're using here with a handheld battery-powered device, and even at a 65-watt TDP, through all of my testing here, temps never hit thermal throttle. And remember, we've got that Ryzen MAX 385, up to 65 watts here in dock mode. For AAA gaming at 1440p, our average temp was only 73 degrees Celsius, and the max recorded through all of my testing, even running benchmarks, was only 81. So it didn't hit thermal throttle, and yeah, this is going to get a bit louder than it would in handheld mode. Of course, this thing's using a lot more power, but the fan curves they use here try to keep it nice and quiet, and you could go into the BIOS and take it all the way up to keep it nice and chilly if you want to. But even at that 65-watt TDP, never hit thermal throttle with it, and I actually didn't even worry about it given how good this cooling system is in the GPD WIN 5. And of course, I completely understand that this was made to be a handheld gaming device, but if you're spending that much on a handheld gaming device, you might want to get a little more out of it. When you're on the go, you can use it as a battery-powered handheld at those lower wattages. When you get back to the house, you could always plug this in, set it up in dock mode, and unlock that extra performance. In fact, I mean, I do think that this thing's putting out enough power to be somebody's main PC if they were going to use it like that. As you saw, I mean, it does handle AAA games at 1440p on an iGPU. But that's going to wrap it up for this one. If you're interested in checking out some more videos on the GPD WIN 5, I'll leave some links in the description. I made a couple of them, and one that I will have on the way is SteamOS running on this, or maybe Bazite, depending on if I could get official SteamOS up and running on this chipset. Right now, we're kind of dealing with it not booting on Strix Point, but hopefully that's going to be fixed soon. So if that's something you'd be interested in seeing, make sure you hit that like button and think about subscribing. But that's it for this one. Like always, thanks for watching.